Hey guys, what's up? This is Andrew Price here from BlenderGuru.com, coming at you today with another tutorial related to architecture. This time we're going to be tackling the interior of the building. In this case, I've decided to show you how to model the interior of a kitchen. Now I posted this idea on Facebook and somebody asked me, why am I teaching a tutorial on how to model a kitchen? Are there people in the world that don't know what kitchens look like? First of all, actually, yes, there are. Not everybody is as privileged as you and I. But the main purpose of this tutorial is, obviously I know what you guys what kitchens look like, but it's just to, I suppose, give a few modeling tips and pointers for people that are wondering how to tackle something like this scene here. Now, this scene that I've actually decided to model off was one that I got, the idea I got from a architecture magazine. So this is, I don't have a scanner, so I just took a photo of it with my digital camera. But this is the photo from the magazine that I used. So it's, the reason I use photos from magazines is I find that they just, they have a lot more life to them, and that, things that you can get off Flickr and things like that. A lot of them are amateur photographs, but from architecture magazines, they've really they've focused on the lighting and basically just giving life to a room, really. So that's it's just a quick tip there to use a magazine. So I've basically just copied exactly what's in this picture here, leaving nothing to my imagination for once. And so that's what I'll be showing you. Now, I highly doubt that I'm gonna have time to show you each and everything in this scene and how to model it from scratch, because as you can see, there's a lot going on here, and it took me probably about 3 days total to model everything in this scene. So I'll try and get as much covered as possible, and I'll see if I can cut the tutorial at about maybe 40-45 minutes, because I don't want to keep you guys too long. So I'll speed things along now. I'm going to open up a new scene, add a plane. That's a good start. Now, I happen to know the dimensions of the room because I've already modeled it in the past, but you do need to spend a little bit of time just, I suppose, sort of getting the dimensions of the room right so that it matches a photo, if that's what you're replicating. Now so that's the main floor there. I'm just gonna quickly make the back wall and the side wall there. So if you have a look at the photo, there's the floor and there's the two walls. Okay. Now, with the camera selected, I'm just going to drag it down so that it's more level with what the photo is here. I'm also going to change the dimensions for the camera because, as you can see here, for the photo, it's more of a portrait photo, whereas Blender's got different dimensions. So I'm going to set this to 1000 by 1200, and that makes it a little bit more accurate to what the image is. All right. So now I'm just going to position this just so it lines up. The other thing I might want to do is change the default angle of the camera lens in Blender. By default, it's 35. A lot of photographers use a lot wider lenses to get in more of the room. So you might want to try setting it to maybe 30 or 32, depending on what you've got, or something like that. Because they tend to use better cameras than your average, point and shoot cameras that you buy from your store, or something like that. Alright, so now I'm just going to piece together just the base of the room, like the bench and the countertop and things like that, just so that I know where everything stands. Okay. So this obviously here is this wooden bench top with the sink in the background there as well. So I'm just putting that there, and I'm just duplicating that, and this is going to be the back counter, obviously. Okay. Alright, well that's looking alright to me. Now, getting it so that it lines up perfectly with the image can be quite a painful process, I found. I had to test and adjust, my image many times before I finalized on choosing something better. I originally had the angle at something like 20 because I found that was closer to what the image had, but then I just thought it looked really weird. If you use too low of an angle, the picture does start to look pretty weird. Alright, so now I'm just going to create a cut, maybe about halfway there, and this is going to be where the sink starts. So I might make that a little bit longer actually. Alright, And I'm going to make this a separate object just so we can apply materials and things like that easily without there being any problems. Alright, now I'm going to duplicate this cube here. I'm going to scale it down the Z axis. I'm just going to place it there like that. And I want to get the thickness right so it doesn't look too large for it. I'm going to hide that cube there just for now. I'm going to add an array modifier for this bench here, because as you can see in the image, you've got 3 levels. Now that's very easy to do with an array. So if we just go into the relative offset and we just decrease this Z amount, set the count to 3, and there you go, you've got 3 levels for the bench. So very easy. Press Alt H to bring back that main cube there. I'm going to switch to face mode there by clicking that. I'm just going to drag those in like so, just so you've got that sort of cut in area there. Now I'm also going to duplicate that. Whoa, where did it go? There we go. Hate it how it does that sometimes. Alright, now this is just going to be that little back wall there. I'm going to turn off arrays like that. I'm also going to just turn on the or apply the array modifier just so that I can make this top bench there just a little bit wider than the other ones, just so that it sort of looks like it's overlapping it, sort of thing. Okay, so we've got that in place, and I'm going to make this sink just a little bit small there. While I'm at it, I might as well just quickly just model this sink as well. Some people might be wondering, you know, what's the best way to model a sink? So that's what I'm going to show you now. That's what a tutorial's for, isn't it? So I'm just performing cuts by doing Control R. It's a really, really good key function to get used to. Adding loop cuts, one of the best things you can learn. And then I'm just putting in the basic area where this sink is going to sit. Okay. Now once I've done that, obviously I've got that loop cut there selected. I'm going to press Shift D, like that. Then press Escape, then P to make it a separate object. And now this is going to be where we're actually going to start modeling the sink there. So I'm going to press Control, Shift, Alt, C, and then press Origin to Geometry. Oh, you can't do that in the edit mode. Let's try that again. There we go. So now I've got the origin sitting there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move those vertices there. Add a... I probably could have done this probably a little bit easier, but, you know, whatever. Whatever works for you. Alright, so I'm going to start modeling. So now I've set up that mirror modifier there. I'm going to start modeling the sink area. So this is very easy for now. Yeah, this is a pretty weird way of modeling a sink, I must say. I could have just added a cube. I think that's how I did it originally, but, you know, make mistakes in tutorials sometimes. I'm not going to reshoot it. Not this time. Here's a quick little tip for you. For my tutorials that I make, usually, on average, I have to redo them about 5 or 6 times each. So when you consider that a tutorial is half an hour long, it's about 3 hours of recording usually before I, you know, get the final result that I'm happy with. So that's something there. So as you can see, I've added the subsurf modifier, and if you press the N key, you bring up this transform feature here, and then you can do things like that, and just create creases. Previously in Blender 2.49, I think you press Shift E to add a crease, something like that. I forget what it was now, but yeah, that's changed now. It's in the N key. Alright. I might add some creases just in these corners here as well. If you're adding creases just along multiple things like that, it's best to use the edge select mode just so that you don't get conflicting problems. Doesn't make sense, does it? Alright, well that's the sink pretty much done there. I'm just going to stretch out that edge there just so you've got place for the tap to go. I might model the tap possibly a little bit later in the tutorial if we have time, because it is quite an advanced looking whoa, tap. I'm going to save this now. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to do the cabinet. That was a long tutorial for this kitchen sink there. So the cabinet doors, if you have a look at our image here, if we go down just over here, you can still have a close-up. But you've got this sort of, yeah, like a drawer thing, but it's sort of extruded inwards a little bit, and then you've got the doorknob there. And that same sort of pattern is replicated all throughout the scene on the doors up there, over on the far cabinet, as well as these cabinets here. So that's fairly easy. And best part is well, modern kitchens, modern sort of living areas, they sort of made it really easy for architects and you know, archiviz people. You don't have to do any UV texturing. Everything's white. Everything's clean. Everything's, you know, modern, things like that. Downside to that is that, of course, it's a lot harder to make your scene look realistic because everything is very modern and clean and realistic and things like that. But it doesn't look right when it's 3D. You know, when you try to make it in 3D. Okay, so I've added a plane and I've moved it so that the corners, these edges here, are past this origin point. So then I'm going to add a mirror modifier, press X and Y, and enable clipping as well. Okay, and now they're touching like that. That's what we want. And now I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to add a cut there and a cut there, and I'm going to do the same for this bottom edge here. Okay, then I'm going to switch on face select mode, select those three faces there, and then just extrude them inwards. So then you've got a plane that looks a little bit like that. But we actually want it so that it's a little bit more scaled in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press Shift S, scale it into about there. So we've got those vertices in the right place, but these ones aren't. So we're going to deselect those. I'm going to drag that one down and then drag that across like so. So it's a little bit of a weird way to do it. Probably not perfect, but it's alright for what we're using it for. And now that's probably just a little bit too far extruded inward, so I might just make it to there. And then the magic function, add the bevel modifier. That really adds realism to well, I mean, it's just a basic general rule of 3D. In the real world, there is no such thing as a complete 90-degree angle, really. You know, like for example, these benches over here, if they existed in real life, you'd cut your arm walking past it because of that edge there. So by adding the bevel, it just gives it that extra tiny little surface just on the edge there, which really adds to the realism, but it does increase your render times as well, because obviously you've probably got, you know, double the amount of faces that you did before. But for something like a cabinet, it doesn't really matter that much because it wasn't adding much to the render times to begin with. Alright, now I'm going to scale this down a little bit. I'm going to add an array modifier because I actually want two of these, like so. I'm going to scale it along the z-axis and then scale it down just so that it fits this area right here that you can see in front of you. The other thing I'm going to do, just to give it an edge, not as in edgy or trendy, but just the edge for the lip there, yeah, I'm just going to extrude those edges inwards so it looks a little bit more three-dimensional and less flat. Alright, now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add what I should do is just drag, because originally we just had this cube there for that kitchen sink area, but I'm going to just make it really small, increase that a little bit, make these cabinets go underneath, just so that it all slides in nicely in place and looks like an actual kitchen, not like something I designed. Alright, so that's looking okay. Although we've got that face at the bottom. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Alright, now you can see what's going on. Alright, so we've got the cabinet there. Now that cabinet is basically replicated all throughout the scene. So you've got cabinets there, you've got cabinets on the wall there. You've also got cabinets up here. I should probably just create that as well. So if you have a look at this image that we're copying here, we've got 2 cabinets there, and then this fan that sucks in all the smoke and fat from the greasy fire there. So I'm going to create that now. Should have created this before, but it's alright. Press Ctrl R, create a loop cut. And I'm just going to make that a separate object. That's pretty easy. And then I'm going to drag in that edge, like so. And the problem is, now these 2 objects don't have faces. Let's do that. Okay, pretty good. And I might extrude that down a little bit just so that it's got a little bit of an edge there. Okay, so we've got 2 cabinets there now. I think they're probably actually wider. At least this one is wider than what we have created. So let's just do that. Okay, so it's looking more accurate now. So now what I'm going to do, I won't show you just to save a little bit of time, but I'm going to put those cabinets over on this wall, over on this area over here, and on these cabinet things over there. So it's very, very easy. I'll show you how to do one, but it's basically, you can just very quickly just scale these cabinets to however you want, just by going into edit mode, keeping the perspectives of it right. So you don't go and scale it like that, because then you can see it just sort of warps. So you go into edit mode and you move around the edges like so. So I won't show you how to do that because we want to keep this tutorial nice, quick and snappy. So I'm just going to do a quick cut there, and let's move now to the finished result. Shazam! Cabinets everywhere. So in that short little break there, I've created cabinets for this wall over here, as well as placing these little knobs, not that kind of knob, all over the cabinet doors there as well. Okay, so with that now done, what we can do is focus on the objects that we're going to be placing on the benches. Now the first one being is the plates. So if you have a look here, we're going to have a go at modeling some of these plates. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is add a tube object, okay? And if you press T, bring up the toolbar, and I'm going to change the vertice amount to 8. Now the reason for that is I'm going to be using subdivision a lot. So add a subdivision subsurface there, if that makes sense. And I'm just going to remove these 2 vertices like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale in this top row of vertices. So press E, and then scale it inwards like that. And then press E again, scale it in again, and then press E one final time, and then press Shift S, and then select cursor to selected, and then press Shift S again, and then selection to cursor. And then if we select all those vertices, and then go down here and press remove doubles, then that there becomes 1 point. Okay, now with that done, I can now move these down, and down even further like that. As well as that middle vertice there. Alright, and now if I press N, we're going to bring up the, we're going to be changing the median crease, okay? If I select that, push that in, I might just increase the subsurf just so you can actually see the effects that it's having. I might make that a 5, median increase for that a 0.5 as well. Okay, so we're getting the basic shape of the plate. It's looking okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale in that, whoa, not like that. Scale in that lip there like that. Just so that it makes up the base of the plate. And obviously we're not going to be seeing underneath the plate, so you don't need to get too fancy. But alright, so that's the base of the plate done. Now, how do you create the stacks? Now, you can probably guess, because I've probably done it a lot already, we're going to be using arrays. So I'm going to turn off X, turn on 1. This is for the Z. And now if we just increase this count here, then you can very, very quickly create a stack of plates. So now I'm going to scale that down. Might turn down the subdivision a bit, just so it's easier to work with. Okay. Alright, so I'm not sure if those plates should probably be a bit bigger. In which case I might just move this wall in there like that. Alright, so it's looking alright. Now I'm just going to duplicate these plates a few times. And now what I'm going to do is just decrease it a couple just for these ones here. Now some of you might be wondering how to get the effect of, I'll just open up the other scene, just how to get that sort of randomized look to the plates so that it looks as though they've been moved around by hand. Yeah, that sort of jagged edge there like that. To do that, it's very, very easy. All you need to do is enable the array modifier. So click apply. And then you have to select just one of the vertices of the plate and then press Control L and you'll select the entire plate. And then if you just move it along the X, whatever axis there, and just to make it look like the plates aren't perfect, you know. Because of course, imperfection is the digital perfection. Little tip there, little pearl of wisdom. And yeah, if you just do that to the rest of the plates, then you can create that randomized effect. The other thing I'll show you is how to very quickly create that, like a modern mixing bowl. One of these things here, really, really easy. Just add a UV sphere, cut it in half, scale that, and then add another UV sphere. I'm just going to set the segments and the rings down to 8 just to make it so it doesn't use up too much. I'm going to scale it down and then I'm going to move it just to about there. Okay. And I'm going to enable mirror on the X and the Y axis. So now you've got these 4 little feet there. And if that origin point is at the same point as the mixing bowl, which it is, then that mirror will fit perfectly to the bowl. So if we just move this up, you can see that it's perfectly centered, those 4 little objects there. And it doesn't matter if it sticks through the bowl a little bit. I didn't matter when I did mine. Doesn't seem to make any difference. I'm also going to parent those little balls there just to the main mixer bowl. So now that we move it, it all sticks to it. Okay. And now I'm just going to place that mixer bowl just about there. And I'll make another one next to it as well. Move these plates along. Okay. So that is the base of that shelf there now taken care of. I'll quickly, I don't think I'll have time to show you, any of this sort of stuff down there, and that's really optional anyway. I'll keep it to the bare essentials for this. I'll create a pot, and I'll put this pot over here, because that's something you definitely need in a kitchen, a couple of pots there. So if you have a look at this picture here, you can see that it's obviously very cylinder-ish, and then it goes, it's a little bit dipped in at the bottom there, very smooth, goes up a little bit, then there's a bit of a ring where it's sort of raised a bit, goes up a little bit more, and then there's another ring. So if you just sort of go, just base off that, if we add a tube object, and I'm going to set the vertice count to 10, and I'm going to enable subdivision subsurf. Okay. I'm going to remove the top and bottom vertices again. I know you can actually check the cap ends when you create it, but I always forget. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just basically create those cuts that you can see in the image. So you've got a cut there, 2 cuts there, 2 cuts there, another cut at the top. So let's do that. Cut at the bottom, cut here, cut here, cut here, and another cut here. And I'm going to scale those as appropriate. And there you go, really, really quick. How to model a pot in the Blender 2.5. And I'm just going to increase these median counts as well, just to give it more of an edge to it. Like so. I mean, yeah, you can go into a bit more effort and things like that if you want, but I mean, that's looking kind of like a pot. Kind of. It's a weird looking pot. Maybe I'll make that not so much. Okay, now I'm just going to create the lid for that pot. So for this, what I'm going to do is add a UV sphere, and I'm going to make the ring count 32, just so we've got a bit more control of the top part. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice off probably about there for the UV sphere, and then I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to put the origin in the center of the object, so Control Alt Shift C. The most elaborate key function, I think. And I'm going to create that, just select that top vertice there. Forgetting my words. And I'm just going to, just so that you got that dome lid, just what you can see there. It's actually kind of almost flat. So we might actually make that lid even shorter like that. Alright, so it's looking pretty good. And then I'll just create a quick handle for that as well. Again, you guys might, already have a clue for some of this stuff. Other people might not, So that's why I'm just showing the how to do things like this. So that was one thing a lot of you guys suggested in the last survey that I put out. I asked what the main thing that you guys wanted to learn about in Blender, the lack of tutorials, and a lot of you guys said modeling was something that was definitely lacking from Blender. So I've decided to do a lot more modeling tutorials lately for that reason. So hopefully this appeals to you guys. If not, why not? Let me down. Give me the wrong information. Alright, that's alright. It's looking pretty good. Maybe we'll leave it as flat for now. Okay, so that's how you basically create a pot. Now what I like to do is parent it to the object that it's stuck to. So if you remove the lid stays to that, and if you move the pot stays to that, like so. Okay, now in the other image you've got two pots there, so you might want to duplicate that as such. Alright, so now what I'll show you guys how to do is create the chopping board. Because I know some of you guys might be wondering. So as you can see here for this chopping board, it's sort of got this sort of a grated sort of look there, and then a tray. So it's quite a complex chopping board. I don't know anyone that actually owns a chopping board this complex. I don't know why they exist, what the point of it is. I guess just to look pretentious at a party, you just whip out this elaborate chopping board and start mashing up bread, I guess. I don't know. Maybe somebody who owns the chopping board can fill me in. Probably won't want to own up to it now that I've said that. But there we go. So this is a modern house. So they've got this cool chopping board. So I've created a mirror setup, and I'm just putting cuts in where I see fit. What I'm going to do is create two cuts here. Scale that along the y-axis there. And I'm also going to put a cut here and another cut here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that sort of that grated look. Not grate, like a, it's got holes going along it. So you can do that via this method. Select faces like that. Alright, and now I'm going to basically just using the array modifier again. As you can see, I love the array modifier, huge time saver. Just going to remove these faces here, because where it's actually touching there, you don't want to have any faces or vertices sort of any faces that are touching, because it can create problems later if you're modeling things. So you might want to be aware of that. That's why I've removed them. Okay, but now that that's done, now we can basically just increase that array count, and you get that sort of that hole look to it, or like a hole in the middle of the chopping board, which is kind of cool. Okay. Alright, and then I'm going to, I think that's enough holes in it possibly. It's long enough, I think. Then what I'm going to do is just apply the array. You can see that for Blender, I'm not sure what sort of update they did it in, but you can now apply the modifier even if it's not first in the stacker, which is kind of cool. Kind of saves you a lot of time, a lot of grief having to make it the first when it's not really necessary. This is just getting tedious. I don't know what you guys think when you watch my tutorials, if they're boring or if I waffle on too much. Try and keep it quick and snappy, because I know I hate watching tutorials that are just boring. So I try and keep it snappy. Alright, and then you can sort of create a tray in the middle there if you want. So that's how you do the chopping board. Now I'll show you how to do the knife, because I know some of you might ask me that question. This was something I discovered that was quite a cool little trick that I learnt for very quickly creating that sort of serrated edge. So if you have actually that one doesn't have a serrated edge, but for my one, that was the one little bit of imaginative thing that I made for this one here. But I gave this knife that nice little sharp serrated edge there for this bread knife look. And I found out a really cool way that you can do that in Blender. So you start with a plane, and then basically you create a few cuts. You create one there, one there, and then basically you just move that up there like so, add an array modifier, increase the count a lot, like so. Okay, so you've already got this serrated edge there. Well, then to get that cool sort of smoothed off look, where it's like that, like little rounded edges, what you do is you apply a subsurf modifier, make it the first in the stacker. No, sorry, you have to check merge for in the array modifier, and then the subsurf modifier will look good. And then basically what you do is raise, where you create a loop cut there first, then raise these two groups of vertices like that. Okay, you've got a nice edge there already. And I'm going to increase this median like so. And I'm also going to add another loop cut just going across here like that. Okay, so it's looking pretty good so far. So that's a really quick way how to create a serrated edge. Might want to make that a little bit longer for what you've got, and then apply the array. And I'm just going to remove those vertices there, extrude that one, just to create that end point there. You might want to increase the median crease there just to give it a point. And then for the handle itself, that is well, it's fairly easy, but you basically just extrude these out several times, and this just creates that little guard there where your fingers go, so you don't chop your fingers off. It's handy to have that like that. And this is just creating the handle there, and then this will be the end of the knife about here. Okay, so just quickly showing you this part here. Just make a median crease there. Like that. And the other thing I'm going to do is just to make it look more raised, particularly for this handle, is just raise it slightly. If I have to select all these vertices by hand. Like so, and I'm going to enable a mirror modifier. But I'm going to make it first in the stacker, like so. Okay, alright, so it's looking, well, that part's not looking very good, but the rest of it's looking okay. So I mean, there you go. I mean, you can go into more detail and create the back end for that, but I think you guys get the idea for how to create a bread knife, or any sort of knife or sword you guys want to have a go at that has got a serrated edge. It's a quick little thing that I discovered. That's a really ugly looking knife, isn't it? Have to fix it, make it look better. Oh no, I'm gonna make it look worse. Oh no. Oh well. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Okay. All right. So now what? Let's see how we're going for time. Got 15. All right. So we've got a little bit of time. What I'll show you very quickly is how to do. Well, first of all, let's just make this fan move out a little bit so it's more realistic to the photo here. Okay. I'll show you how to do I think you guys can work out how to create these utensils here fairly easy, as well as those bottles. Everything else is pretty straightforward for this scene, except for this guy right here. Very elaborate looking thing. Now I thought about maybe just doing a simple sink with a simple tap, but I decided to just go ahead and create what was in the picture just to see if I could. Now I discovered a quick way to create that really elaborate, where is it, this pattern here. So it's pretty complex sort of thing if you were to try and model that by hand, but I did find a quick way to do that. So if you add a Bezier curve and then you press Alt-C, you remove that cut there. Now this can be a little bit difficult, this part, because you have to sort of know what you're doing with curves to get things to line up. But basically I'm gonna extrude, not extrude, maybe control click, yeah, there we go. I'm gonna place that directly above this other curve, this other anchor point for this curve. Okay, like that. And then basically I'm going to, it's just a matter of making it so that we're basically creating one spiral piece that's going up slightly. So it does take a little bit of fiddling around, and keeping in mind also that spirals, you know, especially something that's, you know, coming from a kitchen sink, things like that, it's not going to be a perfect spiral, so don't go nuts if it doesn't look exactly right. We're going to enable turn off front and back, and we're going to give it some depth and resolution. Maybe 4 is okay, and just sort of make it look however thick you want. And then, now this is something new, you didn't used to be able to do this, but you can actually add an array for a curve. So I'm not sure when this was added in 2.5, but I don't know, I just discovered that it worked recently. It would only work for meshes, so it's kind of cool that we can now do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to enable merge, so we want these 2 points here to merge perfectly. So let's see the best way to do that. Basically just have to experiment with these measurements here until they line up the way they should. You might also need to rotate this. So if we just move that over, go down to the point there. As you can see, they sort of snap into place when it's moved a little bit like that. Might need to grab this other one underneath. It is quite fiddly creating you know, something of this shape, but there you go. Okay, so it's sort of joined up there. So the measurements change a little bit when you move things around like you shouldn't. But alright, so that's looking pretty good. Then it's just a matter of increasing that count to get that ring effect there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add another curve, so at that point there. Alright, now this is going to be the actual curve that springy looking curve thing there is going to follow. So if we add that, like so, increase that curve to about that. Actually, I think for my one I actually had it as a path object, so let's do that. Sorry, increase that upwards, And let's select this curve object, and we're going to select curve as the deformer, and we need to type in the name of this curve, which is right. Why can't I select it? There, it's called curve. Okay, there you go. Alright, so it's now going to be following the shape of this thing there, which is kind of cool. Trying to make it so that it's moving down at the right place, but that's alright, we can leave it as that. So I'm going to just increase that array count there. Select this this path object here, and it's just a matter of just carving out the shape that you want these springs to follow. Now for my sink object itself, I had it as let's see, it was I had the distance between these two see these points here, so it was a lot higher up, so the springs were a lot more spaced apart. In this instance I've made them a little bit too small, but alas, you can get the general gist of how to create something like that cool little springy thing. Usually you sort of see this thing in like industrial kitchens where they have that sort of springy bit that sort of comes out of the top like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess now some houses have them. I know they have them a lot here in Korea. But yeah, you can experiment with things like that. How are we going for time? 15. I think we're pretty much coming to the end. I'll show you very quickly because I know someone's going to ask how to create the bread. The bread is something that is more texturing than modeling. So this isn't going to really make a lot of sense unless I wish to show you the texturing itself. But I'll show you quickly. I've just created one cube there and subdivided it, cut it a few times across there, and I'm just going to increase it like that, create a few cuts across the horizontal wise, or vertical wise I should say, like so, and also just a few cuts that way as well. So that's basically how to get the bread shape. Now when it comes to texturing the bread, it's simply a matter of basically finding a picture of bread. Now I found some bread on the internet. Sounds weird saying that. I also found some bread in the pantry, but I found some pictures of bread in the on Flickr. So where are these pictures? So I just pulled random pictures off Flickr of bread that I found, and then I basically just used the UV texture tool to just highlight sort of that bit there to use as the slice, and then this piece here I used for the actual bread body, and I just sort of modeled it a little bit weird, but yeah, so that's basically how to do that. And then to actually create the slices, once it was all textured, it was just a matter of just chopping off one little bit like that, making it a separate object, and then moving it in slightly like that, and then rotating it a bit, creating another one, and deforming it as such. So I mean, it's not rocket science for the bread bit, but yeah, it does sort of, I thought about just completely avoiding bread or just creating some bottles or something there, but very few people in 3D sort of ever really model food, whether that's there's no interest or that the food that they're modeling never really remains uneaten for a period where they can actually sit down and model it. It always gets eaten straight away. But yeah, so I thought about just avoiding it, but then I just yeah, I thought it would be cool to include that. But there you go. So that is essentially how to model a basic kitchen scene in Blender 2.5. So we did cover a lot. The finished result, there is a couple more objects as you already saw earlier. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. But yeah, so I mean, you can experiment. I've created another chopping board here, a few pots and pans, a toaster. This entire dot blend is of course available from blenderguru.com to download for free. So you're welcome to do that, pull that apart and have a look at how each and every one of these objects is made. So it's definitely something that is needed a lot in the 3D industry, creating rooms, indoor rooms, things like that. Now, next week, what I'm going to be showing you is how to render this entire scene and put it, how to render it in Lux Render. So Lux Render, if some of you don't know, is an external renderer. I'll talk about all that next week. I'll just quickly show you the finished result of the, if I can remember where it's put. Okay, so this is the finished result that I've, after rendering that entire scene in Lux Render. Not perfect, and it's probably going to change by the time I create the tutorial next week. I'm going to do a little bit more work on the lighting there. But there you go, just a quick teaser for next week's tutorial as we take the kitchen scene and put it in Lux Render to render, light, and create the final result. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks very much for watching.